go to work every day because they need a paycheck, but not happily, not feeling part of the process, not with a lot of pride. What I was very interested in hearing from all four of you, I believe, is employee morale, low turnover, people's pride in being part of the process. Can each of you, or whoever chooses to, say a few words about what happens to an employee in an employee-owned operation? How does that change his or her life? Why don't you start off by you?
Well, I think that
hold that mic a little bit closer.
I think a lot of people didn't understand, in our situation, didn't understand what an ESOP was. And we had a very interesting, another strange situation where we had our administrative principal, who was our ESOP kid, and we had him out in the field interviewing people, talking about retirement benefits, explaining the benefits to them again. And hard to believe, the particular individual he had with him never really understood what his 401k, his ESOP contribution was going to or where. And found out in the course of the conversation a $30,000 balance in his account. He broke down in tears. And we had never experienced that. Remarkable to me that somebody would know that. It's incredible. I can't say that that's a very small, minor, unique situation. But I think people really look upon ESOP in our company as they work hard, it's for their future, it's for their retirement plan, and it's a significant benefit to them when it comes to retirement. And you can see that in examples I used already in just the way they approach work.
You see the difference?
You do, you do. It's just and people are aware of it. We're actually promoting it. I think people like Cindy and Steve do, I was telling you, do a much better job because we're much more mature ESOP company than we are, promoting it, making employees understand it. But I think we're starting to get the drift of how to do it, and it's working.
Jeff, you talked about low turnover. How does a worker with Chroma seem to be different than other employees in here?
After they learn how Chroma operates as a minimizing management, and it might take some employees 6 months, it might take some employees 5 years, to understand that we're paying a salary to people that are way above market rate because we spread the decision-making process for their departments back to them. Some employees coming from larger companies or more regimented companies with supervisors, managers, and what have you, just don't get it right off. It takes years to understand that we're paying extra because someone's not going to make that decision for you. If you need extra equipment, if you need to alter your work habits, work time, or do whatever needs to be done, you need to either make that decision or help others make that decision.
And do you find people stepping up to the plate in that regard?
Some people that you wouldn't even expect. Ideas come from the quietest person in the company. If you give them the opportunity, and it might take, comment cards, it might take conversations, it might take, barbecues or what have you, but the ideas come. You've just got to be able to be open to listening.
Okay. Cindy, what's your experience in terms of employee morale and ideas coming from people in the organization?
I think we've probably become masters of getting input from people. I'd like to say that our business has always been steady state, always growing and doing great, and unfortunately we've been that fluctuant company. So for me, it's all about how do we get input and how do we hear the input, and maybe some of these days want to talk to that. But for me, it's always giving those opportunities so people have the opportunity, whether it's a staff meeting, it's a town meeting, it's a
do you do town meetings right on?
Town meetings, yeah, small groups where Jim Feinstein, our president, would meet with groups of 15 and just have smaller discussions about whatever it might be that's coming up. And so the feedback comes in many ways, and you're right, you have to have different forums for that so that people know how to give that input and have the guts to give it. But I see the more people give it and are willing to give it, the more other people are willing to give it. And I'll give one example right now, which is that we had a tough spring, and we're doing better now, but we took a tough spring, so our top managers took a pay cut. Our ESOP committee, we have a cross-departmental committee, is doing a surprise lunch for them to thank them. And so for me, that even the employees are willing to say, hey, thanks to managers for doing that. They don't have to do that. They came up with their own idea. It was a surprise, and that's why we're having more people here today. But it's those kinds of things that are always happening that, that make you realize people get it and care about everybody, no matter who you are.
I visited Steve's operation, King Arthur, over a year ago, and it was a whole lot of workers out there, and people just felt very comfortable. I mean, it was just a very nice environment where I think people felt, you got that feeling that they believed that they were part of the process. Steve, what's your observation?
Well, I was thinking of that same visit, and Lori, who used to work at the telephone company, will remember the conversation with you forever. But it was a very dramatic moment where she was hired from the phone company and compared and contrasted what it was like for her to work there versus to come and actually help people have success baking, whether it was helping them on the phone or helping them in the store. She showed up with an energy and enthusiasm that we talk about health and wellness, and I think that's a topic in and of itself that's really interesting, just what you thought companies are doing there and how that might also be other benefits to a broader community. But Lori was a different person working for King Arthur. And then the other example I thought of is on the anniversary of every employee's joining King Arthur, I go around, thank them. Each year we have a little something different, a travel coffee mug or a license plate holder that talks about King Arthur employee owned and stuff like that. And in a recent one, somebody in the fulfillment center was saying, this is the longest I've ever worked at any place. I said, King Arthur is the longest I've ever worked here either. And after 5 and 6 years, you feel like it's yours and it's part of your life, and you think about how to make things better on weekends, and you care about the people there, and your energy is devoted towards making things better. And it's not just for the bottom line, it's all the other things you've heard. So it's a totally different sort. And some of these measures that were quoted here today get to it, but it's way bigger than that.
Steve, thank you very much. Let me take it to our experts over here. There is great concern in this state and all over this country about the outsourcing of jobs. I think people feel very uncomfortable that increasingly it is difficult to buy a product manufactured in the United States of America. And they look over their shoulders to whether their job is going to end up in China or India or someplace else. Obviously, people who have control over their own jobs, who own the companies that they're working in, are not going to move their company into China. How significant is the issue of outsourcing in terms of providing motivation for employee-owned companies in the United States? Who wants to touch on it? Want to start with that? Pass it on now.
I don't know that there's been a really comprehensive study of that issue, but we have heard anecdotally stories of employee-owned companies during the last year or two when the economy has been so tight and where cuts were faced, who have turned around and started to outsource certain services and then turned that around and run them back in-house, employ employees at the company who otherwise might have been laid off to complete those services that had been outsourced previously. Maybe some of the others.
Well, Bill, maybe you could say Ohio has been hit very, very hard. I mean, Ohio is a major manufacturing state, and the economy is in rough shape. And outsourcing, I know Sherrod Brown is the co-sponsor of this legislation, and he and I chat about this all the time. What's going on there?
Ohio has been unbelievably devastated in the last few years with the loss of manufacturing jobs, many of them going overseas. In the ESOP world, we've seen fundamentally during that same time period an increase in jobs at ESOP companies. If all of the companies in Ohio were employee-owned, who knows, the picture may be somewhat different, because other people have said it. Employee owners simply don't send their jobs offshore. They do what they can to keep their jobs intact. I'll echo John's comments that anecdotally, what we have seen is that employee-owned companies are much more reluctant to lay off folks. They will, in true example of participative management, they'll figure out some way to cut back everybody's hours. Or somebody will say, I'm 58 years old, I have tons of money in the bank, you're 26, you're married, you have 3 kids, you work, I'll lay myself off. Things like that happening for the greater good of everybody that you're working with and working for the